Welcome to the Mosaic Podcast. We're so happy to have you here. The Mosaic Society is all about celebrating the intersections of our identity, whether it's through culture, spirituality, or civics. We're three friends exploring these paths together. I'm TMarie, your cultural mosaic.
I'm Roseberry, the voice of the spiritual mosaic.
And I'm Shreyaa, bringing in the civic mosaic. Our mission is to strengthen friendships through exploring each other's passions and to inspire confidence for you to show up as your true self in your communities.
We'll be sharing new insights, ideas, and conversations each week with fresh posts every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And of course, this podcast on Sundays. So let's dive in and explore the many intersections of identity together.
Welcome back to the Mosaic Podcast. We're going to be continuing from our previous discussion on modesty and talking about femininity. So, to begin, we can start with the question of what is our view of femininity and how is it influenced by societal standards or expectations?
So, when I was thinking about this question, it really had me thinking, what is femininity? You know what I mean? Like, not to be like, what is life? But like, what is femininity? So it's like, I feel like the idea of femininity that like we look at and it's like the girlhood, womanhood, majority of it is like societal engineering. Now that's not to say I don't subscribe to some aspects of like girlhood, but I just thought that it was really interesting that it's like our beliefs of what like femininity is and what does it mean to be feminine. It's, you know, it's kind of like what we're taught to view femininity as. And so it made me start thinking about like the trends that we saw. I think it was last year, like 2024, like the girl math, the girl dinner. And don't get me wrong, when she said if I pay physical cash and it doesn't come out of my card, it's like it's free. I felt that.
Agreed.
Because that's how I feel exactly. You know what I mean? Like that's, I agree with that. But then I was thinking like, why is that girl math or girl dinner? You know? So I don't know. Because now I'm just like, what does it all mean? But I think it's interesting because I think a lot of the ideas of femininity that we have, we think that way because of society. But I don't think there's one way to be. That's all.
Agreed. Okay.
Philosophical.
I'm literally on the same wavelength as you because I was like, in my answer, I was like, it's just something everyone has. Like, femininity and masculinity, it's not like, it's such a weird concept because it's not like gender. It's not like gender identity. It's not like sexuality. It's not like the sex you're born with. Like, those things can be concrete. Like I'm straight, I'm gay, I identify as a female, I identify as like those are things that you can label. But femininity and masculinity it's a social construct.
Yeah.
Like femininity is more soft while masculinity is more assertive. So to me in my head, the way it makes sense to me is like femininity is gas. Like when you think of solid, liquid, gas. Femininity is a gas, masculinity is a solid, and then the liquid is when you blend the two together. That's kind of how I kind of think of it. Just because this is something I stand by. Everyone has femininity and masculinity within them. Because it's a social concept. There's certain characteristics that fall under both, so you can have both. It doesn't matter which one. And so I think that similar to what you said of like girl dinner, girly, whatever, like I think femininity is really seen as like girly pop things, like the way we dress, getting our nails done, sleepovers, like that's really girly. And then like we're really emotional and tuned with ourselves and we're caretakers because we're mothers. Like I think that's what they see femininity as, but those are all things that men can also have within them, with the masculinity or male identifying people can have. So yeah, it's a really weird concept. It's not something as concrete as gender or gender identity, sexuality, but it is so concrete in society's terms at the same time. It's weird.
Agreed. I agree with both of you. The first thing that I did when I saw the question was I Googled femininity. And Google says it's characteristics associated with women and girls. So it's basically a societal construct. It's what society has observed or traditionally associated with the female sex.
Agreed.
So yeah, so what my view of it is, I don't, because there's so much said about it. There's so much that's, um, I don't think of it as something that's associated with women alone or with the female sex alone, because I think there are characteristics that generally are more, for a lack of better word, soft, traditionally considered to be more soft or more gentle or something along those lines.
Hmm.
But I think everybody is capable of that. Every individual is capable of having those characteristics. It's just um, what society expects women to have. Yeah. Anyway, so going along that, what do you guys think is the balance between traditional or modern views of femininity?
I
Or
don't think
what
there's
do
a
you think
balance.
were okay? What do you think is a traditional view of femininity, and what is the modern view of it?
So like for me, there's no balance, honestly. Like I was really trying to think about it. I feel like some people show a good balance of the two. Some cultures show a good balance of the two. But for the most part, in the society that we live in, I guess specifically American society, I don't think there's a balance. I think traditional aspects of femininity has to deal with more like domestic roles, like
Mm-hmm.
embracing softness, prioritizing family, taking care of her husband. Like I feel like those are more traditional views. That's the way I was thinking of it. Like think of like 1940s, 1950s. And I think more modern views of femininity have a lot to deal with like self-sufficiency and independence and this notion of like you can do it on your own, that you don't really need someone else. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
those are the two. Um, I think a lot of times it's just a push and a pull between whether you're traditional or modern. And I think something that's always kind of bothered me a bit is when people express the preference of a more traditional view, of femininity specifically. I think that oftentimes our more woke culture tends to frame these choices as like outdated or oppressive. Like, oh, you just want to be a stay-at-home mom and take care of your husband, da 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 da. There's this like, oh, well, you can work hard too. And they can, but they choose the other way because that's what they prefer. I think on one hand, what modern views of femininity is really empowering because for centuries women have been oppressed. And now we're at a point where it's like we stand up for ourselves and we show that we can do what a man can do. We create the opportunities to do such things. But sometimes it pushes so far to the other side where it's like, but don't be traditional, don't hold that point of view. Why would you want to live in an oppressive mindset? But for some people, it's not an oppressive mindset. That's how they find their peace. So I don't think there's a balance. I think it's a push and pull. And I think we need to find a way to understand that you can have strength in wanting to live a traditional femininity lifestyle. And then there is also a beauty in wanting to be independent. I just feel like we haven't found that yet.
I agree with all of that. I think there is like this idea of having a balance between traditional and modern views. Now I'm not sure if that actually is reflected, but I think people have an idea that there is a balance. I had a few examples. I think people look at certain figures like Ballerina Farm, Nara Smith, and I think they like to make a lot of arguments about them trending more towards like traditional because it's like
Hmm.
they love being like not homemakers per se because Nara Smith, she has a job and everything. It's just she does like the cooking from scratch. She dresses in like the couture outfits and everything. And I think that's great. But I think what the ultimate like femininity is you just embrace it however way you want. If you want to do it one way, that's cool. If you want to do it other ways, that's great as well. I think when we get in a mindset where we want people to view it a certain way of like, oh no, you have to think this way, like you kind of similar to what Rose says, like you should want to like hold your own and da 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 da. Not to say they don't, but I think when you start impressing what you view as progressive and like, oh, this is modern femininity, I think that's where it's a problem. And also on the other
Hmm.
side, when people are like, well, traditional women, you do da 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 da, and the man is supposed to be the provider. Why are you da 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 da? I
Yeah,
think that's where it's just too much. If something works for
agreed.
you, that's great. It works for you. It works for your household. It works for your relationship. That's great. But I think people should just be able to express it in whatever way they want. Me personally,
Mm-hmm.
I think I would kind of want, I guess, a hybrid of
Mhm.
sorts. Like, I don't want to be stuck in gender roles. He can wash a dish just as much as I can wash a dish. But I can also go out and be a breadwinner just as much as he can go out and be a breadwinner. But I think that's the thing. You just have to find what works for you, and there's no one way to be. There shouldn't be one mindset, because I think that's really counterintuitive counterintuitive for a lot of feminists.
Yeah.
Feminists, right? Yeah, for a lot of like arguments for feminism, and I believe in feminism, of course, but I think that's just as repressive to feel like women should act in one way versus the other. So, yeah, that was the plane. It took me a while to land it, but that's where I wanted to get. And I think I
Okay.
should have just landed it immediately. But there you go.
Okay. Plane landed safely, no bumps. So success. um, when I saw the question, I didn't think of it along the lines that you guys were thinking about it. In the sense that I didn't think of gender roles as such. I thought of characteristics that were associated with women. So femininity in general, like nurturing, caring. It does influence the gender
Um.
roles that are associated with the female sex, because women traditionally are considered to be the more nurturing one, the more caring one, the more sensitive, or the more emotional one. They're better suited for certain kinds of job profiles, certain types of roles within the household. So the caregiver, or let's say, I hate saying this, but teachers, or someone who's a nurse, but not somebody who's a firefighter, or
Mhm.
in the army. So just things like that. The idea of associating women with less physically demanding tasks. So I thought that was the more traditional way of looking at it. I think feminism and the feminist movement has played a huge role in influencing how we view femininity, the general disposition of the female sex, and has evolved it to make it more fluid, in the sense that you can be nurturing, caring, sensitive, and emotional, but at the same time be capable of being aggressive, or doing things that actually demand a lot of physical energy or strength. So it's possible for both to coexist. And do I see a balance right now? No. I see it's like a medley of some sort, if you think about it right now, the present day world, because a lot of people still hold on to certain traditional notions of femininity, and thereby stereotype women or set standards on women, um, which also impacts the way they assign gender roles. But I also see that it's evolved. So people are cherry picking things, in the sense that you want them to be. You expect. I feel right now a lot of women are expected to be super heroes or super human beings. You expect them to do it all. They can't do it all. In the sense that you can't
Mhm.
expect a person to be the perfect homemaker, the perfect career woman, or the perfect and just generally an individual woman at the same time without any help. No, that it doesn't work that way. So if I see a balance, I feel one, it has to come with acceptance that some women might just, like how you guys said, some women might just prefer to be homemakers. They might just find that more joy. That gives them peace, and that gives them joy, and that gives them a sense of purpose. So that's fine, and that should be respected. I think there's a lack of respect and dignity. It's looked down upon, like it's not hard work. It is hard work. It's just a different type of labor altogether. It takes a different
Mhm.
kind of skill altogether, or patience in that sense. And it should be respected if women don't feel that they can. If they can't cook, it's fine. If they can't take care of the household, or that's not their forte, that's fine. It's okay. So I think, yeah. Is there a balance, or I don't know if there is a balance. I think we are at this point where people have started to challenge notions of looking down on homemakers, but at the same time expect women to be superheroes at the same time. So maybe we'll get there. Society will get there eventually. Um,
What I wanted to say, because T said feminist, and this is actually something I thought about while I was thinking about this topic. For a while, I just didn't consider myself a feminist. I couldn't get myself to be like, I'm a feminist. And part of it is I kind of, well, not part of it. The thing is, I try to stay away from those labels of like feminist, activist, whatever it is. Like all those people who are like in some way, shape, or form advocating for the empowerment or better treatment or simply humane treatment of other people. Because I feel like once you start to put labels on it, a lot of times, because so many people tend to jump onto those labels, we start to forget slash lose the foundation of it. And so like years ago when I just couldn't really call myself a feminist, I didn't feel confident saying that. Part of it was the lack of intersectionality when it came to feminism and the way that we perceived it. Another part of it was I just felt like we were moving away from the foundation of what feminism was meant to be, whether it's from like the women's suffrage movement or like um the Me Too movement, like all these different moments where women are standing up for what they believe in, empowering each other. It just gets hard. So I get confused sometimes when it comes to being a feminist.
And on that point about feminism, when I think about it, I think I kind of had always heard about it, but like what you said, like the intersectionality, like there's certain spaces where, yes, it's feminism, but it's like, it's not, going back to like
Hmm.
women's suffrage movement was originally white women. They weren't concerned with other women of different identities. So I
Yeah.
think that's, you sometimes see that reflected in feminism as well. I just think that's kind of realistically where society is still sometimes. But when I think about my first kind of interactions and kind of exposure to feminism, this is gonna sound a little funny, but I think of Beyonce's song Flawless, where like
Hmm.
I don't remember her name.
It's a
Um
long name.
yeah, I'll put it up on the screen. But she has that whole monologue in the middle of the song. And I
Okay.
think that's where, and you have Beyonce "Ooh," in the background. And it just, we gonna listen to the song when we get together. But
Okay.
It's
it's,
so
I
good.
feel like, I feel like it just really like, wow, like that message was just so empowering. And so, like, that aspect of feminism, like a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes. Like, I was like, wow, yes, that's powerful. That's amazing. And so that's kind of always the lens that I've looked at it through. But, and so, like, yeah, I believe in feminism, but I also, it's, not everything that glitters is gold all the time. Because
Mm.
there's always some parts that might not suit the true meaning and the original meaning. But yeah, I think that was my first introduction to it, and that's the side of feminism that I like to stay on.
Yeah. I think what I was trying to say, my side of feminism, because you had a really good structure to it. My side of feminism that I grew up with was very surface level, very basic, in the sense of like traditional versus modern views of feminism first. And then secondly, it was surrounded by white people. Like I just grew up around white people everywhere. And so I think we have another question on this, which I guess we could just jump into if you guys want. But like when you're talking about white feminism and black feminism or white femininity and black femininity, they're drastically different because those two groups of women hold two different responsibilities within their community, within their race. And so I think being a feminist, a lot of times, I think if we've gotten better. Don't get me wrong, we have gotten so much better in the last like since like I would say the last decade. I'll give it to them, like the last decade. Um, but I think it started off as something that was just it was just so exclusive. Like you had to meet this standard of what being a feminist is. And it's not just with
Mm.
feminism, like with activism, you have to meet this certain level of being an activist, this certain level of being a Muslim, this certain level of being a black person. Like there's these, when we put labels on things, you have to reach that standard, even if that standard doesn't identify with who you are,
Hmm.
or even if that standard shifts over time. So the standard that you're introduced to with feminism T with the song with Flawless, it's shifting. It has shifted over time. Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean your perception of feminism has shifted over time. So when we start talking about femininity, when we start talking about standing up for the sexes, the equality of sexes, you have to make sure you're doing it in a holistic way. And we get lazy. We just do. We do what's easiest to keep our reputation, to keep our identity sane. And so that's what I was trying to say. We have come far. We have done so much work. It's just not, it's just, there's certain roadblocks and barriers and hurdles set up within the feminist or I guess womanhood as a whole, the community that we're kind of ignoring slash starting to talk about, starting to tackle. So maybe like a few years down the line, things will be a little bit more different. But, and I would say COVID really stopped a lot of different movements, or like hindered them a lot. But yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Whew, so much better.
Interesting. Do you guys want to talk about what you feel is the difference between femininity with black women and white women? Because I feel like it's a follow on to what you were talking about, right? What do you guys think is the difference?
When I think about the differences in how black femininity and white femininity is viewed in society, I think about just how differently those two identity groups are viewed. You normally see white women, they're more so in society cherished, they're more seen as something more protected and precious, versus black women, there's this very unfair standard that, one, first of all, we're invincible when we're not. You can go back to some of the very inhumane science experiments that scientists used to do on black women without consent back in the day. We're also seen as hypersexualized all the time. It doesn't matter what age a black woman or girl is, we're always hypersexualized. So I think that really plays a role in how society accepts how femininity is expressed from a white woman versus a black woman. I'm gonna pass it off to Rose because that's all I got right now.
No, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's I agree. I think when it comes to black femininity, it just holds less value. When it comes to, it's like devalued in societal terms. Like white femininity, it's softness and innocence and purity, and it needs to be protected. And then with black femininity, it's the femininity aspect of it is overlooked. We're always grouped in with the masculine aspect because we have to, instead of us being protected, we have to protect. And instead of us being seen as soft, we have to be hard in order to protect our community. Like black women have been the backbone of a lot of black communities, historically speaking, because I think in part it's, you have to see the intersectionality of it. Like I always think about when people are like, yeah, like I couldn't buy a house without my husband. I couldn't get a credit card without my husband. Like when white women would say that. And then you're like, okay, but let's add the other layer of being black. Because black men already struggle to get a house. Black men already struggle to get a credit card, let alone their wives doing that. So I feel like black women are always like, I don't want to be dramatic, but I also don't think it's dramatic. I feel like black women are always like a century behind white women. Like we're trying our best to get there. We're trying our best to be seen as equals when it comes to femininity, when it comes to being a feminist, but we're always a step behind because systemically and historically speaking, we've always been devalued and seen as, like T said, like, oh, we can handle anything. So they throw everything at us, you know? Um, so yeah, I think that's the biggest difference. I think just the aspect of like everyone hears the stereotype of the angry black woman or the strong independent woman, which is usually portrayed as someone who's black. And then you can see that throughout other minorities as well. Like when you see minorities with fairer skin, like Asian, like Eastern Asian people, they kind of fall into the category of white feminism, right? Soft, innocent, pure. And then you see like Hispanic people or Latin American people, especially Afro Latinas, they fall into the black femininity, you know? You see it, it starts with white and black and then it just slowly spreads with all different forms of minority. And I always find it really interesting, Pacific Islander culture, like Samoan cultures. I don't know any others. I know others, but I can't properly pronounce them, so I'm not going. But like I'm not going to. But like Samoan culture, like the way women are viewed, I think is really beautiful because they're strong. They're they are funny, they take part in all the different aspects of the community. I'm sure there's a lot of sexism involved, of course. Like historically speaking, sexism has just been around for years. It's differ the first difference we can identify, male and female. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But with like Pacific Islander culture, like being strong is seen as being beautiful, right? Like
Mm.
not just like as a characteristic, but also like a physical characteristic as well. Like having the muscles, taking part in rugby, surfing, whatever it is that you're doing, it's seen as beautiful. So I think Pacific Islander perceptions of beauty when it comes to femininity is something that should be dissected a little bit more because it's really unique. It shouldn't be, but it is. And then maybe when we start looking at that and like first off respecting and appreciating the culture, but also finding ways to collaborate and adapt aspects of their culture into Black culture, maybe we'll see a difference. Maybe.
Okay.
But I don't know. We're, like I said, we're always like a century behind. We're trying. We really are. But it's not there. I don't know when it'll get there, but it's not there.
Okay.
But we've done great. I just have to end on a positive note. We have done so many great things and we are amazing. It's just right now I'm talking about the negatives, but I can also talk about.
Okay. It feels like the community is playing catch up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always,
Okay.
always. And real quick, what you said about being hypersexualized like Black women, yeah. And I think that I've been talking for a minute, but I'm gonna do it. I think that plays a big role into my view of modesty as well. I don't think just being a Muslim is what plays into my view of being modest. It's also the fact that I'm Black and people hypersexualize me. And I think that played a really, really, really big part into why I dress the way I do, why I carry myself the way I do. Because if you're going to hypersexualize me, I'm not going to give you extra reasons to. Again, I'm not going to, what did I say earlier in the modesty one? Compromise myself for the validation of others. I'm also not going to compromise myself because someone's being dumb or thinking dumb things. But I'm also not going to sit there and appreciate, or I'm also not going to sit there and take the hypersexualization as well. So I think that plays a really big part in my view of modesty too.
I agree. And I also adding really quick to the hypersexualization aspect. Like when I say things really were not built for us, like not the
At all.
Constitution, not social engineering, like it's not our fault that we have just different body types, but the way that one person can wear something and someone else can wear the same thing and it's just viewed differently, and it can skew very negative and offensive to the person who has the more curvy body type. It's upsetting because it's like,
It wasn't meant for us.
yeah.
One last thing. Also with I think looking into African cultures as well would be helpful.
Mm.
Um, because in African cultures, it's mainly Black people, dark-skinned Black people at that. Obviously, there's colorism, that's an aspect there. But looking at the way that femininity is viewed in African cultures, where, I mean, colonization was a thing too, so that's also a layer onto it. But for the most part, looking at African cultures where beauty is seen from the perspective of Black women more so than white women, I think should also be studied. Because if you take a Black man from Africa and you take a Black man from America, it's sad to say, but 9 times out of 10, if you put me or T in front of them, I trust that the Black man from Africa will find us as beautiful. I don't necessarily trust that the Black man from America would. Not all of them, of course. It's never all. It's a generalization, but for the most part, the social engineering of what beauty is really impacts males in their view of what femininity and beauty is. That was my last thing. I'm done.
All right. um, so I think that it's interesting that you guys pointed that out. So moving on, what exactly do you think femininity looks like when it comes to male validation versus female validation? Because you did mention about societal engineering and how um, men in, let's say, the United States might look at women differently when compared to men from Africa, was it? Or am I saying it
hmm
wrong? Yeah, okay.
Specifically, Black men,
Black
specifically.
men, right? Black men.
I think on the surface level aspect of it, um, when it comes to like, I guess like male validation or like the male gaze, it's very external when you think about femininity. Like the nails, the hair, the makeup, I think that's just like at its surface. That's the start of it all. But then I was thinking about, I think it's Guardians of the Galaxy. There's a scene where I could be wrong. I honestly could be mixing up my movies, but I think there's a scene in Guardians of the Galaxy where Gamora, who is a woman, and Peter Quill, who they're dating, right? And Gamora's trying to be a leader, and like she's basically not trying to be, she is a leader. But Peter's kind of like, no, like it's me, like he's making jokes about the fact that like she's not the leader, it's him. I could have my movies wrong, I really could, but I don't think so. And I think about that, and I think that also plays a role in male validation and the male gaze, the way that we view women as leaders, the way that we view women as assertive, dominant people. Like when Kamala Harris was running for president, I heard all the time, I don't think a woman can run the presidents or can run the country. Women are too emotional. Women can't handle it. And so I think a lot of times male view us as this like thing. I don't know if delicate's the right word, but they view us as someone that can't get the job done. And so then you kind of have to question when you choose who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world. Do you do it from the male gaze or the female gaze? Do you say screw that and be who you want to be, follow the female gaze, specifically when it comes to like sisterhood and womanhood and empowerment, knowing that that cuts down your, I'm gonna say suitors. I don't know. I'm gonna say suitors. I don't know why, but knowing that if you go down that route, if you have 100 suitors, that automatically cuts it down to like 50. Men just
Mm-hmm.
they don't necessarily always want that in a woman. And honestly, some men they don't want that in a woman, and they're not trying to like be sexist or anything. They really aren't. It's just for them, like they feel more confident and more comfortable when the gender roles are more intact. Not the stereotypical gender roles of like washing dishes, cooking, take care of the kids, working, not just that, but like the gender roles of the woman being emotional, and being emotional is a good thing too. The woman being emotional, the woman being open, the woman being soft, and them being more hard because they want that. They want to be able to go home to that in some sense. They want to be able to find that in a partner, find that softness. So I think sometimes for men, it's like they can't find the softness in themselves because of the way that we built up masculinity, that they want to look for that in a woman. So when they see a woman who also has that like assertive dominance power, it turns them away because that's not what they want. That's not what they're looking for. They want the balance. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. They need to feel like they're the head of the house, whatever. And
Yes and no.
that's not the right phrase I was going for. I was gonna say head honcho, but that really didn't feel right. So I went with head of the house, but it's like I hear what you're saying, but like they need, when they feel like there's someone else who rivals them and kind of like that assertiveness, they kind of don't.
But not because of like a competition standpoint, but from a fact of like they want the softness. It's not necessarily that like I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, well part of it, some men it's like, oh, their masculinity is threatened when they see women like that.
Mm.
But what I'm trying to say is I feel like for a lot of men, it's not that their masculinity is threatened. It's not that they're scared of their masculinity. It's not that their masculinity is threatened for a lot of men. I think it's that the femininity hasn't had its time to shine. Femininity hasn't had its time to cultivate, and in a sense they kind of want it to, and it's hard to them, societally speaking, it's hard to get that femininity to shine and to cultivate and to be nurtured with someone who you don't see as feminine. When you see a more dominant and assertive woman, you don't necessarily associate that with femininity. So that's what I'm trying to say. Part of
Mm.
it, I feel like some men it's the competition, like their masculinity is threatened, but I feel like for a lot of men, they want to touch it, tap into that femininity, and it's hard for them to do that, so they look for their partner and their partners to help.
Hmm. That's
That's
interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah. You know what? This conversation reminds me of this one scene from a movie that I watched last night. Just this bit. So, retired couple, okay? The woman is strong. Everybody in the family respects the woman because she's a retired headmaster. She was basically the head principal of a school, and she's an authority figure at home. So this dude goes for a walk every evening or afternoon, and somebody moves into the basically sets up a shop near their house. And every afternoon they're screaming. The lady sleeps, takes naps every afternoon. So her husband goes out and he's like, "Don't make noise," and they basically bully him. They bully this old man. They make fun of him, and he comes back all subdued, saying that I yelled at them. You know, the basic rant about, yeah, I showed them, but he didn't. He got scared. So the lady's like, yeah, you absolutely showed them. So the next day, when he starts avoiding going towards that corner, she goes out and she sees how disturbed he is. She goes out with a stick and she basically thrashes them, saying that you don't disturb my husband. And the next day, when he walks by that path because he couldn't avoid it, they treat him with a lot of respect. And they're very nice to him. And then he comes back all proud. He's like, yeah,
Oh.
you know, I showed them. They respect me now. And then she's like, yes, you did, darling. Yes, you did. Of course they respect you.
That's so sweet.
That's
It's
cute.
just, it's cute, but it just made me laugh. It's like, okay.
Mm.
It just made me feel like they both got validated. I don't know. It was more about male validation in that sense, or his ego, or his sense of masculinity being I don't know,
I get what you're saying though.
preserved. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was funny. It's like asking a guy to open the jar when you can open it yourself. I've never done that, but I've seen people do it. T, do you have anything?
Did, but I forgot. The one thing I was gonna say, which was kind of unrelated, but I was gonna talk about how I feel this way too, but I don't know if y'all have seen on like social media where girls are like, it's nice when I get a compliment from a man, but when I get a compliment from a woman,
Yeah.
I feel like the most powerful, beautiful person in the
Mm-hmm.
room. And I think that's so true because I just think it's something like it's like this collective like recognition of like another woman and like their strength and their beauty. It just hits differently in a way that for men, especially if you don't know the man and you just get an offhanded concept, it just feels very surface level, very kind of like, oh, thanks, you know. But it just, you feel more seen when a woman says that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was
Is
going to
it
say
because
more, but I forgot.
it feels more genuine in some way because the lady does not have
Yeah,
to
Yeah.
compliment me.
I
I've
agree.
always felt that. And I also, but this, I can't talk about everybody because everybody is different. But personally, when it comes to getting validation from a man, I don't really get validation. But if I
Me
do get
neither.
validation, it doesn't really
Yeah,
do
same.
anything. In the sense that it bothers me more if I get if it's the opposite of validation. I don't know what the word is.
What? The opposite of
If
validation?
suppose I
Like,
don't need validation from men, I would prefer getting validation if it's genuine regardless. But if it's not validation, but how do I say,
I don't know the
I'm
word, but I know what you're saying.
you know
I
what
don't
I'm
know the
saying,
word
like
though. Yeah.
the only word that's coming to my, underestimating me or saying something that makes me feel
uh,
smaller, if that comes from a man, I'm like, why, like, why would you say that? I don't mind not getting any validation at all. That's not a problem for me. But if I get that, that bothers me more if I get it from a man. From women, it doesn't really matter. I like validation. Please say nice things about me. And if you're genuine, I'll just I'll I'll ruffle my I'll just fluffle
yeah.
my feathers about. Yep. So
I
I
think the only time, oh, I'm so sorry.
You're
I
good.
think the only times when like male validation is like, oh, is when it's not physical. Like when it's like we're having a good conversation and it's like you can tell intellectually you're
Yeah.
having like a good conversation. I think that's when I appreciate it. Like it's like, oh, he's funny. Oh, I'm funny. I made him. That's cool. But if you just say, oh, wow, you're so pretty. Thanks. Then I
no,
go
that
about
would
my
creep
day.
me out. That would creep me out. But that's because I'm not very good with receiving compliments.
I don't get those often either, but I prefer when it's more,
I always feel there's like you're lying to me. Why are you lying to me? Why are you lying to me? Don't lie to me.
But I would believe a woman if she says, "Oh, you're pretty." I'd be like, "Thank you so much. You're gorgeous." That's how I feel.
You know what? I shouldn't be answering this question because I have issues receiving compliments, male or female.
You do.
So
That's a
I'm not.
fact.
So I shouldn't be answering this question at all because my sense of perception is skewed.
Honestly, I think I don't mind any form of validation from a man. I really don't. I think I always just take it as I don't know how to explain it. Like the compliment comes or the validation comes, and I'm just like, thank you. And I go on with my day. When it comes to women, it's like a thank you. Oh, that was so sweet. I go on with my day. I don't know. With validation, it's just a little, I think I'm just, as long as I'm comfortable with myself, I'm okay. I'm not saying that other people seek validation, but I just think I haven't really conceptualized or analyzed validation
Mm.
in my life. So I think maybe that's something I should think about a little more. I will say, I think men are weird to me. Like, like I don't understand men. Like
Mhm.
I think the social norms within male culture is something I just genuinely I don't get it. It doesn't click in my head. I only have in my entire life, I only had two guy friends that I'm really close to. I'm still friends with them now. Just those two. But one of them, our friendship is because we're so similar to each other in the way that we process stuff. And another one, I think it was just a matter of like, I didn't even want to be his friend at first. Like my friend, it was like we had mutual friends and then we had very similar ways of going about life. So we would help each other a lot, you know? So
Mhm.
like that's how that happened. But other than that, like having male friends was weird to me. I didn't get it. I didn't
Mm.
understand it. Men are just confusing to me. But I think it's because what I'm thinking of right now in my head is what if a man said, I don't get women, women are confusing to me. People would jump down their throat, right?
Mm.
Like people
Mm.
would be annoyed, people would jump down their throat, but I'm saying it and I feel like most people would be like, "Oh, it's same, yeah, fine." So that also gets to me because I sometimes I feel for men, not always. Sometimes I feel for men because like in their journey of understanding femininity and masculinity, in their journey of understanding male and female validation, male and female gaze, all this stuff, they have to be very careful in the way that they express themselves, in the way that they express their confusion or their curiosity. And so whenever I say stuff like this, I feel like this is what it feels like to be privileged in some
Mm.
way. Because like I'm in a very privileged place where I can say this stuff about men.
Mm.
And I can be like, oh yeah, men, they're confusing, they're weird to me. It's very privileged of me to say that, but men can't do that. But I wish they could, because I do want to understand male culture more. If you think about like male podcasts and you take away 50% of them because they're just like take away 50% of them because they're just y'all fill in the blank. But yeah, but then you're left with 50% of male podcasts. Let's say maybe like 10% of that is gaming, another 15% is like just social life, and then you're left with like what, 25%, and some of them are just really offensive. They're just really offensive. And then the others are like they don't dive in deep enough. So I don't really have a space where I can go and understand the male mind.
Mm.
There's just not. And I don't mean understand the male. I feel like anytime I'm like trying to understand the male mind, it's always through the perspective of love. Of like how to make a man fall in love with you. This is how men view love and romance. I don't care about that. I'm literally trying to understand how they interact with each other. Like, I don't know if you guys saw on TikTok, there was this girl, this was also years ago. She was talking to her husband. She was like, oh, how was basketball? How'd it go? And she basically learned that when guys go to play pickup basketball, there's no order, there's no pickup, there's no like team captain. It's just like, okay, I want you on my team. You set up the team. You play, you lose, then you set up a new team. And she's like, okay, but like, how did you decide? Did you guys sit down? Did you go over your strengths? But like for men, that's not how they think, right? So it's like, I don't know. It's a different perspective of the world that I really want to know more about. I really do. It's just hard to get it because you either go too far in and they're like, females, I hate them. Or you go or you're into like the gaming world and you don't understand what they're saying because they're making jokes about like gaming and anime and you're like lost. Or you go into like the very academic aspect of it. And it's like I just want I want a Drew for males.
Mm.
Hmm.
That's what I want. And I don't think I've seen that or found that.
Interesting. I don't understand men either. Like, but I don't understand women either. Like, I don't understand anybody. So,
I feel like I understand women. I don't even, I just can't. Like, I'm so confused the way they think. But I also think it's because I didn't grow up with brothers. I'm one of six girls. The only males I had were my dad, my uncle, and my cousin. And my
Mm,
cousin's younger than me.
mm.
And my dad is not your traditional male. I don't think so. Like, he's his own person. So it's like that's all I could see with masculinity.
Yeah. I also feel that it's difficult to. I feel that men have it slightly. I mean, not all men. You know what? Forget it. I'm not saying it. No, no. That's just fodder for um outrage. No, but sometimes I feel that they have it a little hard because they
Hmm.
can't say a lot of things now. Even if they're well intentioned, they can't say a lot of things because there's a lot of anger. It's like people get triggered like that, and not excusing those idiots who say no, just those well-meaning, unintentionally stupid ones or clueless ones
Hmm.
because you don't know.
You
So
know?
when you said there's privilege, I see it. I understand that there's a certain level of privilege, that very exclusive, very smallly defined privilege that women have when it comes to saying
Yeah.
things
Hmm.
about men.
L- let's just emphasize that a very distinct, small level of privilege that women have. Because the other thing is, there's gonna be some type of man that takes this and runs with it. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, women are this, that. No, that's not what I'm saying. At the end of the day, when it comes to the battle of the sexes, women have always been oppressed over men. Point blank, period. But I do acknowledge the fact that men also have a lot of struggle when it comes to
Yeah.
femininity, masculinity, and even with sexuality. Like, there's still struggles that show up.
Maybe
I'm
not
just
talked about
acknowledging
enough
that.
as well.
That's what I'm saying. You
Yeah.
can't find it. You cannot find it. They're always funny. The males that I see on TikTok with podcasts, they're funny. It makes you laugh. It makes you giggle or something. And then you go too far and they're like, I hate females. And then you go to the right and it's video games. Like, you cannot find it. Where a man is just talking and he's just talking about experience and world. One part they're scared, maybe. The other part, maybe they just don't care enough. Maybe girls just talk too much. Like, maybe that's it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was talking a lot, but I think that's a really good segue into our last question, about where we see the blend between masculinity and femininity within society and within ourselves. Because there's different things we can touch on with femininity and masculinity. There's different levels and there's different niches, but when it comes to the way we view society and the blend of the two, where do we see that? And then how do we see that within ourselves? Also, if those listening, we were going to break it into three, but it looks like we're just going to do two. So the first podcast episode focused more on modesty, and then the second one focuses on femininity and masculinity. But later on, we'll dive deeper into masculinity for sure. Yeah, answer the question. What do y'all think?
I can go. Actually starting to see this a lot within the household.
Mm,
Um, because gender roles within the household are changing. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is not something that's universal, but I do see that there is more acceptability in terms of showing emotion when it comes to men. There, it's more acceptable to be emotion, to show emotion, not be emotional, but to
mm,
show emotion. I remember there used to be this entire thing, boys don't cry, or
Hmm.
you know,
Be a
things like that.
man.
Be a man.
Yeah.
Don't be a girl, or don't be a sissy, or something silly like that. Things like that are changing. I do see that it's more acceptable to for men these days to show more traditionally feminine characteristics when it comes to behavior.
mm-hmm,
I see that there is more acceptability when it comes to professions. Traditionally, female professions are also men can go ahead and do it, and I think women have made more headway in that sense. Women they are able to access more, or at least notionally access more traditionally male job profiles. So I do see that, but mostly within the family. I think when it comes to caregiving, children or parents or just being involved in the family, there is more of a blend now. I mean, they're still distinct, but there's a little bit of blending, just a
mm.
little
What about within yourself?
within myself. Um, okay, I my appetite is legendary. Okay, I eat. I know how to eat, and I love my food. So when I was younger, people would always assume or associate women who ate smaller portions, who ate a little bit, who were fussy. You know, that was the association with women. But I ate like a man. I could out eat every man in my family. Still can if I try. I try not to for health reasons, but I still can. Uh, I can be very loud. I can be very authoritative as well. So within myself, I think I've come to accept that. Earlier, I didn't like being associated with anything feminine, in the sense that I did not like the fact that I enjoy dressing up sometimes. I did not enjoy the fact that perhaps I like traditionally female activities. But now I've come to accept that part of my femininity, saying that yes, I like doing all of this, but at the same time I enjoy this, which are more
Mm-hmm.
traditionally male pursuits or behavioral characteristics. So it's just learning to accept myself. I mean, I can come up with more specific, but I can't think of anything right now. So I'll let you guys talk, and then I'll drop in if something pops up.
I feel like where I've kind of seen like this blend of masculinity and femininity in society is I think I've seen more of a desirability for men to be more emotionally in tune, which I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes, again, I don't think is as fair because I think they're engineered to not be that way, but then it's like it's more desirable when they can tap into their emotions and it's more
Yeah.
attractive. Not for everyone, but I think generally that's kind of a trend that you're seeing. Like a lot of people want people who are emotionally available and know how to understand their emotions and everything. But then I think when I think about my own, so my upbringing, I grew up with brothers. So when I was a kid, I thought I was a princess. I was the only little girl in the household. So I kind of had this like, oh yeah, I'm a princess, da da da. But then I also would take in some of the behaviors of my brothers. This is embarrassing. I would burp just as much as they would, you know? Like that's okay. That's a natural all living organisms take part in gas exchange. A burp is a part of the gas exchange. So I would do that as well. And then I remember my mom would be like, that's not what princesses do. But it's like I wouldn't care because it's like I would just, my older brother, especially if it's an older sibling, you want to follow your older sibling.
Mm-hmm.
So not to say I was a tomboy, but I didn't prescribe. Of course, I had Barbies, I had dolls. I would play with my younger cousin, she's the only female cousin on my mom's side. So we were always close because we were the only girls. But I found myself prescribing to like a whole bunch of different other things because that just seemed normal to me. Like I didn't see the need to be one type of way and do this, do that. No, it's like I'm gonna do what my brothers do, and if that's not what's expected of me, sorry, I think it's cool. I'm a belt. I'm gonna cut that. That's gross. But yeah, I think overall, yeah, I think that's what it's kind of trending more so towards, like just emotional availability from both sexes. And I think you see a lot of people favoring, not all, but Asian culture a little bit with like how there's not as much toxic masculinity with closeness. Like, how I
Yeah.
find it
Yeah.
really annoying when people are like, pause, no homo. Please. Okay, nobody was thinking that until you said it.
You said.
Mm.
Like, I just feel like if you want to give your bro like a hug, give him a hug. That's your friend. It's okay. Like, I'm not looking at you like, that's sus. That's weird in my opinion. And I just think
Mm-hmm.
that's why a lot of people, just the culture over there is different where they're allowed closeness and it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. It's not viewed a certain way within society. And I think we're nowhere near that, but I think people are starting to think about emotional availability, maybe not physical closeness and intimacy with same sex like males and everything. It's seen as, oh, girls can be close, they can like hug each other, cuddle and all that stuff, but it's not seen the same way for males. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what I'll say.
I had three examples or three thoughts about society, and y'all took two of them. So I thought that within
Finish us
society,
out, girl.
yes, ma'am. I thought that the blend of masculinity and femininity was first with co-parenting models, like within the family, the way that's showing up. So that's what Shreya said. And then I was saying with K-pop, I think a lot of times, not necessarily, obviously there's male K-pop fans, but I think a lot of female K-pop fans who are seeing like how close the males are, they give each other hugs and kisses and all that. Like, I think that's normalizing it for a lot of females. Females, I hated that. That's normalizing it. That's normalizing it for a lot of women to be like, oh yeah, like I would like my man to do that, or my brother can do that, whatever. And then my last one had to do with kind of like gender fluidity with fashion and the arts.
Mm-hmm.
I think anything that has to do with creativity, you can always see some sense of like fluidity when it comes to masculinity and femininity there. Like with clothing, gender fluid, or unisex clothing, gender fluid clothing, streetwear being for men and women, like just making it a little bit more like, I don't want to say girly, but girly with women wearing makeup and wearing streetwear and the men just wearing streetwear, and then having like the chains and all that. And then when you look at like movies and TV shows and musicals, like the way we're identifying masculinity and femininity is becoming way more complex. And entertainment is the first way that we start to shift our society perceptions. Like I said, Jersey Shore shifted society perceptions. So as we start to take in more and more of these, more and more of the entertainment world and the different stories that are putting out and the complexities of them, I think we're going to slowly start to shift to a more balanced society when it comes to femininity and masculinity. It's not overnight. It's going to take some time, but I think the arts are already doing that very well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Within myself, I think I've always been pretty good at balancing femininity and masculinity. I think when I was younger, I was kind of on the same wavelength as Shreya. Like I didn't like the girly things. Not that I didn't like the fact that I liked the girly things, because my understanding of what girly was is not something that I um conform to. Like I didn't like that aspect. I still don't. But as I grew up and I started to be like, okay, there's this balance in me of femininity and masculinity. How do I want to express that? It's been easier. So I think that's why I really love this topic, because I genuinely think that everyone just has femininity and masculinity within them. You just have to tap into it. Maybe you have like 60% masculinity and 40% femininity, whatever it is. Um, but yeah, I think it's always been within me, and I think it just shows up in different ways depending on the situation. But it's a pretty good blend.
Hmm,
Very
that's
quick.
nice.
One other thing that I thought of from my upbringing, um, where I said like I got influenced by my brothers a lot, but I also think like on the femininity side, I became like kind of like a maternal nurturer because
Hmm.
it was me and my cousin. We were the only girls, and then the rest were boys, but most of them were younger than me. So I kind of like grew up kind of like not taking care of them, but always kind of like, oh, that's my little cousin, and like doting on them. So I think I naturally kind of ended up having like maternal instincts as well. And in a lot of my friend groups, I would get the nickname mom. So I don't
Mm,
know. I think those kind of blended. Yeah,
Mm.
that's all.
that'll do it. That's fair.
I have one last thing to say. Sorry. T, go ahead and belch. Why fart and waste when you can burp and taste? Go. Okay, fine.
You ate. You ate. That and the glitter, not all things that glimmer are gold. Those are the two things y'all said. The two best things. Give yourself a round of good job.
On it. Okay. I think that's it for this time, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Mosaic Podcast.
Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify to stay updated on new posts and episodes. Also, tune in to our blog where TMarie posts every Monday, Roseberry every Wednesday, and I, Shreya, every Thursday.
We're grateful you're here, and we look forward to embracing the intersections of identity together in the episodes to come. Until next time,
Stay curious.
Stay true.
and stay unapologetically you. Bye.